Okay, so let's jump right in. The original essay talks about this pivotal moment, the moment you stop asking for permission.
Exactly. Stop asking permission to think, to speak, to act based on your own judgment.
Hmm?
It sounds simple, maybe, but it's profound.
It really is. It's framed less like rebellion and more like remembering something fundamental about yourself.
Right. And the essay used this great little story about Marcus's, he's in this meeting, right?
Yeah, the strategy meeting.
And they're just rehashing the same old plan. Everyone kind of knows it's stale. The market's shifted, but silence. Everyone's just nodding along. Predictable, safe.
Oh, I know that room, that feeling where you see the problem, you have the idea, but you're doing that mental calculation,
Right.
the is it worth it calculation.
Totally. And Marcus feels it too, that hesitation.
Hmm.
But instead of swallowing it, he actually raises his hand.
And asks the killer question.
The killer question, what if we're solving the wrong problem? Just puts it out there.
And the shift. The essay describes the silence after that, not as awkward, but as, what was it?
The electric quiet of possibility. I love that phrase.
Me too. It captures it perfectly. It wasn't about shutting things down. It was about opening things up.
And that one act, trusting his own read of the room, of the situation, over the consensus.
Yeah.
That became the turning point.
Led to their most successful campaign, apparently. All from one person deciding not to ask permission to use their brain.
Which brings us neatly to this core concept in the essay, the invisible cage.
Right. The idea that we're living inside these systems, productivity frameworks, communication scripts, educational models, corporate ladders.
All designed for predictability. For conformity. They're meant to keep things running smoothly, minimize deviation.
We swim in it, like you said before we started recording. It's just the background noise.
It is, but the essay argues there's a huge hidden cost, a really significant one.
Which is?
That these systems, by demanding predictability, train us to actively surrender the very things that make us most valuable, our judgment, our adaptability, our discernment, the human stuff.
It forces you into a kind of narrow channel.
Precisely. And think about it. Ask yourself right now listening, when was the last time you took a significant action, something that wasn't just urgent or routine, purely based on your own gut feeling or independent judgment, without needing a nod from someone else?
If you have to really dig deep to find an example.
Then you're likely feeling the bars of that cage, even if you don't consciously notice it day to day.
So the essay dives into why this cage exists. It wasn't an accident, was it?
Not at all. This suppression of individual judgment, it has historical roots, deep ones. The architecture of compliance, as they call it.
This is where it gets fascinating. It wasn't just like emergent, it was designed.
Absolutely. The essay traces it back, quite convincingly, I think, to the Prussian education model from the 19th century.
Okay, Prussia, what was the goal there?
Simple? Obedience. They needed reliable soldiers and efficient factory workers. The system wasn't built to foster critical thinking or independent problem solving. It was built for compliance. Follow the rules, do your job.
And then industry just adopted that model.
Pretty much. As corporations scaled up, especially in the 20th century, they needed ways to manage large numbers of people. So they borrowed heavily from military hierarchies. Command and control, top down.
Makes sense if you're making identical widgets on an assembly line.
Yeah, exactly. It works brilliantly when the goal is compliance, when the environment is stable, and the tasks are predictable. But
the world isn't like that anymore, or at least the valuable parts aren't.
precisely, the moment you need innovation or quick adaptation to unforeseen problems or genuine human connection to solve something tricky, those command and control systems fail viscerally.
Because they've systematically discouraged the very skills needed for those situations.
They've filtered them out or trained people not to use them.
So living in that kind of environment long term, what does that do to people psychologically? The essay has a term for it.
Yeah, it leads to learned helplessness.
Explain that a bit.
It's when people who are genuinely smart, capable, totally able to solve problems, they just stop believing they can. Or, more accurately, they stop believing they have the permission or the power to act.
Even when, objectively, they probably do.
Right. They've internalized the message, wait for instructions, get approval, don't stick your neck out. It becomes automatic.
You see it all the time, don't you? Like forwarding an email up 3 levels for a decision you absolutely know the answer to just because that's the process.
Exactly that. You're trading your agency, your capability, for what? Avoiding the tiny possibility of being wrong or stepping on someone's toes? You minimize risk, sure, but you also minimize your impact. your potential.
That's the cage right there. So if that's the problem, what's the alternative? The essay isn't suggesting just, total chaos, is it?
No, not at all. It's not about tearing down all structure. It's about building systems that trust and actually amplify human judgment and capability rather than suppressing it.
Okay, but hang on. What about genuine incompetence? If you just tell everyone, trust your judgment, doesn't that open the door for people whose judgment isn't great? Won't that lead to costly mistakes, chaos? How do you ensure quality?
That's the standard pushback, right? And it's a valid concern. But the essay argues something really interesting here. It suggests that incompetence often thrives in systems that demand conformity and remove judgment.
How so?
Because when people aren't trusted, when they know they won't be held personally accountable for the outcome as long as they follow the procedure, they stop thinking critically. They just tick the boxes. Errors get hidden by the process, not solved.
So the lack of trust actually enables a certain kind of incompetence, or at least prevents competence from developing.
Exactly. Conversely, when judgment is trusted, people feel the weight of that responsibility. They know the outcome rests more squarely on them. That focus naturally drives them to be more careful, more thoughtful, to actually develop better judgment than any checklist could enforce.
So trust fosters accountability, which fosters competence. It's a different loop.
A much more productive one, the essay argues. It's a shift from trying to control outcomes by controlling people to enabling better outcomes by amplifying people's inherent capabilities.
Okay, let's look at where this plays out. The essay gives examples. Leadership, for instance. What happens when leaders actually trust their teams?
It can be transformational. Suddenly, people who were maybe just showing up, doing the minimum, disengaged, they start taking ownership. They see a problem. They feel empowered to actually try and solve it, not just flag it.
They become creative problem solvers.
Yes. And they develop skills way beyond their official job description. Skills you could never teach in a standard training program because they emerge from tackling real, messy challenges. They figure things out.
And communication, getting rid of the corporate scripts.
Oh, that's huge. Think about conflict resolution. Scripts manage conflict. They rarely resolve it authentically. When you drop the script and speak honestly, addressing the actual issue, even if it's uncomfortable, that's when real connection happens. That's how you deepen relationships, build real trust.
Instead of just polite emails back and forth that solve nothing.
Precisely. And creativity, too. The essay points out that breakthroughs rarely happen on a strict schedule.
Right. They come from tangents, unexpected connections, trusting a weird little impulse.
If you trust those natural rhythms, follow those odd paths, instead of sticking rigidly to the plan, you often discover capabilities you didn't even know you had. You surprise yourself.
So the pattern holds across different areas.
It seems to. The core idea is consistent. Treat people like thinking, feeling, choosing agents, not like cogs in a machine. And they generally perform better, much better.
Okay, so agency is the key. But the essay is clear. This isn't about, quitting your job in a blaze of glory or leading a protest.
No, it's much smaller, much more consistent.
How does it define agency in practical terms?
It's defined by those small, everyday choices. Choosing to trust your own read on a situation over the official narrative. Speaking up with a real question, not just a safe one. Following a genuine curiosity, even for a few minutes. Responding authentically, rather than defaulting to the expected reaction.
Small acts of self-trust.
Exactly. And these small acts, the essay argues, compound over time. They build on each other.
Right, the virtuous cycle of agency. Talk us through how that works.
Okay, so each time you make one of those small choices, you trust your judgment, you speak up, you act, you exercise that agency muscle. Like any muscle, it gets stronger.
Okay, makes sense.
And importantly, you learn from the experience. Whether it goes perfectly or not, you gain data. Your judgment improves because you're actually using it in real-world situations, not just following instructions.
So you get better at making those calls.
Yes. And you build confidence. You see that you can navigate uncertainty, that you can figure things out. You become a little more comfortable with ambiguity, with risk.
And how does this become visible? How does it cycle up?
Well, people notice. Your colleagues, your boss. They start seeing you as someone who doesn't just wait to be told what to do. Someone who takes initiative, who finds solutions, who has a point of view.
Someone who acts independently.
Right. And because they see you as capable and trustworthy, what happens? They give you more responsibility, more complex challenges, more opportunities to exercise your agency.
Ah, so the external perception reinforces the internal development.
Exactly. More agency leads to better judgment, which builds confidence, which earns trust and opportunity, which then demands more agency to handle the increased scope. It spirals upwards. You become known as someone who gets things done, who can handle ambiguity.
That sounds incredibly powerful. So why doesn't everyone do this? If the payoff is potentially so high, why do so many of us stay, safely inside the cage?
Ah, well, that's the comfort trap.
The comfort trap.
Look, those systems, those scripts, those procedures, they exist for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They make life easier in many ways.
How so?
They reduce cognitive load. You don't have to constantly analyze everything from scratch. There are clear expectations, predefined paths. It minimizes the mental effort.
And it feels safer, right? Less risk.
Definitely less risk.
Mm.
If you follow the procedure and things go wrong, you can point to the rule book. I did what I was supposed to do. It minimizes personal exposure, the chance of being blamed for a mistake.
There's a certain security in that. Predictability.
Absolutely. The comfort is real. The security is real. But the essay argues there's a fundamental trade-off.
Which is?
While these systems make life easier, maybe more predictable, they also make it smaller.
Smaller. How do you mean?
They limit the upside. They minimize the possibility of things going wrong, yes, but they also drastically minimize the possibility of extraordinary outcomes, of breakthroughs, of deep fulfillment.
Because those things usually happen outside the predefined lines.
Exactly. The really meaningful work, the moments where you feel truly engaged and alive, they tend to happen in that messy space between what's known and what might be possible. That requires stepping off the comfortable path.
So the comfort trap protects you from failure, but it also walls you off from significant success or growth.
That's the core argument. You trade potential for predictability.
Okay, so if we recognize we're in the comfort trap, how do we get out? How do we start reclaiming that agency? The essay talks about practice, right? Starting small.
Yes, very much about practice. It's not about flipping a switch overnight. It's about consciously looking for small, low-stakes opportunities to exercise that judgment muscle again.
So identifying those moments where you normally just default.
Default to seeking permission or suppress an instinct or bite your tongue. Pay attention to those moments.
What are some concrete examples, little experiments we could try?
Okay, think about your next meeting. Is there a question lingering in the back of your mind, one you think might be a bit disruptive or off topic, but it feels important?
Yeah. Usually I'd just let that go.
Try asking it. Not aggressively, just authentically. I'm wondering about X. See what happens. That's a small act of trusting your curiosity over the expected flow.
Okay, what else?
Maybe you have a creative idea, or just an impulse to look into something unrelated to your immediate task list. Instead of automatically shutting it down because it's not scheduled, follow it just for 5 or 10 minutes. See where it leads.
Respond to the impulse, not just the calendar.
Right. Or in a personal interaction, maybe someone says something disrespectful or dismissive. Instead of your usual reaction, maybe getting defensive or maybe just letting it slide to avoid conflict, pause. Just pause. And choose to respond in a way that aligns with your values, not just reacting on autopilot or based on what they expect.
So it's about inserting conscious choice where there was previously just automaticity or compliance.
Precisely. These are all low-stakes ways to practice. Each small choice reinforces the idea, both to yourself and others, that you are someone who thinks for themselves, who acts on their own judgment. It prepares you for the bigger moments.
It builds the muscle, like you said.
Builds the muscle. Builds the confidence.
So, zooming out one last time. Why is this conversation about agency and judgment so critical now? What makes it particularly relevant today?
Well, think about the systems we've been discussing, the Prussian model, the command and control structures. They were designed for a relatively stable, predictable world. Mass production, clear hierarchies.
A world that doesn't really exist anymore in many ways.
Exactly. We're facing constant technological disruption, complex global challenges, rapid social change. The problems we need to solve now demand creativity, adaptability, critical thinking, collaborative problem solving.
Skills that those old systems were actively designed to suppress.
Right. The innovation and agility needed today simply cannot be generated by systems that prioritize compliance above all else. The old architecture is fundamentally mismatched to the current environment.
Which means the solutions aren't going to come from refining the old systems.
They're going to come from individuals, from people who are willing and able to use their unique perspective, their specific insights, their judgment. Your ability to think differently, to see connections others miss. The essay argues that's not a bug. It's the crucial feature needed now.
So our individual agency isn't just a nice to have for personal fulfillment. It's actually essential for navigating the future.
That's the implication. These capabilities aren't luxuries to be traded for efficiency anymore. They're necessities. And the crucial point the essay makes is that these systems only hold power because we voluntarily participate. We agree to stay in the cage.
We surrender our judgment.
But that agency, that judgment, it was never something granted by the system in the first place. It was always yours.
So the final thought for everyone listening, the challenge, really.
It isn't about whether you can get permission to take back your agency. That's the old way of thinking.
The real question is, are you ready to remember what you're actually capable of when you trust yourself to figure things out?